Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Today we're going to go ahead and do a classic fat acceptance TikTok reaction. I will read you guys the comment because it's kind of small, but this creator is responding to this comment about being fat being a choice. And she's going to argue that it's not a choice. And I'm going to argue that it is, and we're going to get into this now. The comment says, being fat is absolutely a choice. I chose to be fat for many years, making up every excuse as to why I couldn't lose weight. Then I chose to not be fat anymore, and I'm working damn hard to get to where I want to be. And then there's probably more after that. But it just says, if you're, and then it just cuts off. What I will say to this is that I think I will just say a lot of Western countries, but particularly the United States. I think this creator is Britishy, by the way. I think so, if I remember correctly. I haven't watched it yet. But I told you guys there is a culture of jumping in front of moving vehicles to give fat people excuses and doing anything to not allow fat people to have accountability for their situation. It's very weird. I don't really understand it at all. I think it's disempowering. I think it's toxic ritualistic reinforcement, aka E followed by the letter D. I think it reinforces people with those issues. I think there's a lot of people that try to make things overly subjective. So they'll say, like, it's that way for you, but not for other people. They'll say things like that. That's just a way to, again, try to say that I'm the lucky girly pop, that I lost the weight, and all you guys can't. It's just me. I'm Clarabelle. I used to say this a lot in my tortured era. I used to be like, I'm Clarabelle. I'm dazzling, I'm the special girly. I'm the one that made it. They act like weight loss is like becoming a celebrity. It's not. So it's not that rare. It's not that unattainable. It's ridiculous. So that's my little preamble. But let's get into it.
Zoe. Being fat is absolutely not a choice. Being fat is absolutely not a choice. Now, I know there's a number of videos where I said that for some people it's not a choice. And then I was like, Melanie, who are these some people? Who is it you think it's a choice for? So I would like to go on record. Being fat is absolutely not a choice for anyone.
Being fat is a choice for everybody. Now, if we're talking about maybe being slightly overweight, very slightly, or maybe being chunk or thick, maybe. But if we're talking about fat, which how I define fat is you are big enough to where it creates physical issues, physical barriers. Anything from, oh my gosh, I have to slow down while I'm walking up the stairs, or I have to ask a friend to slow down while we're walking. If you're on that level, that is fat. If it has to be accommodated physically, that is fat. Which is very different. It's different socially. Again, if you were just kind of chunkalicious or overweight and you don't have those issues, then I would consider you mid-size, or what I call mid, where there isn't a social accommodation factor. It's just visual. But if we're talking about fatness, yes, if you're class 1 obese, it is a choice. You don't have to be that big. If we're talking about having abs or something, then that's a different conversation. That might not be a choice for everybody. But I think that a lot of these conversations, they do not differentiate between these different categories, or they don't talk about what we're actually talking about, basically. So no, being fat is a choice. Being class 1 obese is a choice. It absolutely is a choice. You do not have to do it.
Now, people who come into the comments with these kinds of this nonsense, because Zoe, you're not the first and you will not be the last, right? You're like, being fat's a choice. It was a choice for me, and I was just lazy, and I made excuses, and now I work really hard, and blah blah. First of all, that is all fatphobia. This is a fatphobic.
So accountability I was going to say accommodation. It's just the Britishiness. I don't know why. That just came to my head. Accountability is fat phobia. So that's basically what she just said. Telling somebody that they need to be accountable for being fat is fat phobia. And I think that that's what it comes down to. I have faced headwinds even on my channel at times when I do talk about these types of topics. People do not want accountability. You know, I had somebody really leaning into that addiction narrative again. That is a way to take away accountability from the situation of fatness. It's a way to, they were trying to blame ADHD and all this stuff. Being ADHD does not make you fat automatically. That you have to be accountable for your fatness. You're not coping with ADHD well if you're gaining a bunch of weight, dopamine mining with food. You're not handling your ADHD correctly, which is something you can take accountability for. By the way, ADHD is not an addiction either, but let's just... I am sick of that. I'm sick of this idea that shielding people from accountability is nice, or it's good, or it's not fat phobic, or that it is fat phobic to force people to be accountable or to confront them with accountability of, yes, you are choosing this. You are choosing to be this way. People don't want to hear it within the toxic ritualistic because it breaks the delusion. You have to delude yourself into believing that it's not a choice. So you're going to face pushback with those people as well. But there's a lot of, psychological mind over matter stuff when it comes to fatness that I don't, it is talked about a lot, but it's also not talked about. It's like I try to keep things midline where I do address physical issues, like, for example, insulin resistance being the most common. That's a super common physical issue and obstacle to weight loss. But we also do have to look at the psychological side. Like, if we as people believe that being fat is not a choice, that is a delusion. That's a psychological delusion. You're putting yourself into a mental prison with that kind of mindset. It is not healthy. It is not living in reality. And it is also creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we have to look at it from both sides, from both a physical level and a psychological level, because they're both interacting all the time within the issue of obesity. That's why it's so hard to deal with. That's why people struggle with helping people to get out of it, because they see both of these sides and they don't know what to do. So I would just say, listen to a fat person, listen to what they say. I'm hungry. That's a big one. If that's the case, they probably actually are. Not being fat is not a choice. That's a psychological issue. So you have to kind of recognize where the problems are coming from within people.
Narrative. This idea that we can all just try harder, right? That everything is just down to food and exercise. It completely ignoring all the other factors that can lead to weight gain.
Well, I don't do that on this side. I do also I discuss the disordered aspects quite a lot, which is a huge part of this issue, particularly within supermorbid obesity. I would say it takes a lot to get there. You usually have to have something seriously wrong, either on a physiological level or a psychological level, or both. You can have an interaction. Remember that the toxic ritualistic will cause physiological issues, most commonly hypothyroidism, as well as it can, lead to diabetes, right? These types of things. Obviously, if you're binging constantly, you can create physiological issues that become barriers to downsizing as well because of the behavior. But regardless, you have to deal with the psychological aspect if you have that going on. And there's no magical cure. There's no Ozempic. There's nothing that's going to save you from the psychological side. Just as a reminder, if you are hungry and you are eating because you're hungry, that is not a binge. That's not. That's a physiological issue. If your hunger cues are really off, where you're needing to eat a lot because you're very, very hungry, you likely have an insulin issue. That is totally different. But if you eat, even when you're not hungry, if you're eating due to anxiety, that is binge. That's that. If you're ingesting in order to feel control over yourself, over your emotions, over your environment, that is toxic ritualistic. They're two different things. There were plenty of times after 2020 that I ate a lot, but they were not binges because I would eat a lot like on a holiday. That's not toxic ritualistic. There's a reason. Or I'd eat a lot because I was hungry. That's also not toxically ritualistic. That is a physical thing. So I need us to understand, I need you guys to understand that if you feel physical hunger, that is not necessarily toxic ritualistic at all. It's not. That's a totally different issue. And you need to separate from that. And also remember, physical hunger is not an addiction either. People have strange views on these things, and I'm trying my best to clarify these things. Being hungry is not an addiction. Being hungry is not toxic ritualistic. If you're hungry when you shouldn't be, you have a hormonal problem, typically involving insulin. Okay? So we need to separate that out. If you're lying about being hungry, then that's toxic ritualistic, right? If you're lying all the time, that's toxic ritualistic. So again, I'm trying my best here to get it all together or try to present it to you guys so you understand what we're talking about. I don't know which way she's going to go, but I will say saying being fat is not a choice is toxic ritualistic to start with. So if it's, I'm just really hungry, I struggle to lose because I'm so hungry, that's physical. Remember your two physical barriers, hunger and tiredness. Those are the two biggest things. And currently in my journey, I'm not actually hungry. I'm just tired a lot. So at this stage, I'm really facing tiredness. And that's my struggle on a physical level. But I can still continue. But it's like those two things are big and they're not toxically ritualistic. If you are tired, if you feel a need to eat due to getting more energy, that is not toxic ritualistic. There's a physical drive. There's a physical reason, not an anxiety reason. They're very different. And they can sometimes overlap within the toxic ritualistic, but you gotta understand, if you are binging constantly for years and years and years, you have cycles and all this stuff going on, clearly it's not just about physical hunger. Okay. All right. Let's continue. If something bad happens and you immediately have to binge, that is not hunger or tiredness. That is, I'm doing this to cope. Okay?
I'm going to do a video of all the factors because I've done that in the past and no one gives a shit, because those of you who have internalized fatphobia, you're not wanting to hear what I have to say. Google's free. If you actually care, you can Google that or you can watch one of my other videos. But there are a number of factors. The one that I've not really spoken about the most is the one that I think affects a lot of us, and that is diet cycling. Because diet cycling leads to weight regain.
Toxic ritualistic. So remember that cycling is a part of binge. It's a part of the problem. Okay? There's a reductive part, and then there's a binge part. And then there's lots of hating your body in between and throughout. So remember, there's 3 pillars. It's like a stool. Because if one of them were to stop, then you wouldn't be able to continue it anymore. So if you were to stop hating the way you look, it would lose steam. If you were to not do any reduction whatsoever, it would also lose steam. Which typically people, when they get further within the toxic ritualistic, on the binge side, they'll cut out certain food groups and stuff. I told you guys meat is a big example. They'll have like very, very little meat, typically because it's more filling. You start to not eat foods that are filling. Anyways, the point is, this weight cycling aspect, this is toxic ritualistic. Okay, so she's literally describing this.
We know this. This has been studied.
Yeah, it's because it's a part of a DIS order. That's why it causes regain.
And for me, I did not choose to be fat. I was put on my first diet when I was like 9 or 10. I wasn't fat. I was never going to be skinny because that's not how I'm built. Genetically, you could see that was never going to be the case. But I was put on my first diet before I had full autonomy over my food. That was not a choice.
It's not why you're as big as you are now. I'm just going to say that. Definitely not. If something traumatic occurred and you developed this DIS order in response, remember, whatever trauma happened, that is not your fault, but it is your choice to stay within the cycle, to stay within the problem. I literally used the word cycle before.
Cycle? 20 years. Over 20 years of diet.
Yes, it's a DIS. I don't want to say it too much, but it's a problem. It's a mental health issue. She would not be a good candidate for Ozempic, by the way, or for GLP-1.
Cycling. And all I ended up
20 years. It's a long time. It's a long tenure in the toxic ritualistic. She would need to heal her brain. It would be a long process. It's a long, long time.
was poor mental health, disordered eating behaviours, and a whole lot more weight that I'd regained. And
yeah, at least she admits it. See, I don't even have to speculate or, be a mystic about it. She literally says it. But the issue is it never stops. It doesn't ever stop. She says it does, but it doesn't.
so I did make a choice.
But I think that people think that they're out of it because they go through some periods without binge when you're in it. Like, you're not always like totally into that. But what tends to happen is you'll have periods where you take a breather and then something stressful will occur and you'll either start dieting or you'll start binging. So it usually happens around stressful times, stressful events, things where your anxiety goes up, then you'll start doing that. And then you kind of usually it starts with hating the way you look. And then you just kind of go into it and then you'll do it for a spell. So you'll do it for 3 months or 6 months. A lot of times those spells can last that long if you're really bad. I was really bad, so they would last 6 months for me. But she's thinking, oh, I don't have the problem because I currently at this moment, I'm not doing anything. But it's the second something happens, she'll be like, whew. And she's probably still looking in the mirror all the time and stuff like that, even on her off season. So I think she's delusional if she thinks that she's not in that issue. I'm going to say that. I think she's totally clueless, which is sad because you can't fix an issue if you're not aware. But that's where I tell you guys, do not reinforce, ever. Do not reinforce someone's bullshit. So if she says this to you, say, no, being fat is a choice. That's not reinforcing her mental health issue. And people, they want to. They'll jump in front of a moving truck to do it because they just feel so much but it's not actually compassionate or empathetic. It's honestly taking an easy way out, and it's just running from a problem, basically, especially if you know her or if you're in her life. Like, you need to start saying, no, it is a choice. You are choosing this. And just don't give in to that.
I made a choice to stop dieting. I made a choice to pursue intuitive eating. I made a choice to unlearn all of the diet culture, the diet industry, all of the rules, all of the racism and colonialism and
toxic ritualistic, conflating politics with it, or using politics as an excuse for your behaviors is very toxic ritualistic.
Fatphobia that I had been taught through dieting. I decided to unlearn all that, practice unlearning all that over a period of time. I still unlearn it now. And I decided to replace that knowledge with things that I should have been taught as a kid, but I wasn't. That was not my choice. It's my choice now, but it wasn't my choice then. And
so it's your choice to be fat now?
In some way, you could say that I'm now choosing to be fat.
Yes.
The way I see it is I'm choosing to respect my body. I'm choosing to...
Weight normalization is a part of respecting your body. So we're not going to play these games here. And, you know, it's ridiculous that I have to even make this comparison for some of you, which I will say it is ridiculous that I have to say this. But imagine if she were extremely thin in an unhealthy way. Would you expect weight normalization? Because I sure would. This is the same. If you don't see it the same, you're a part of the problem. I'll put it to you that way.
To listen to my body. I'm choosing to honor my body. Mm-hmm. I'm choosing to feel neutral about my body.
She's just lying. She's choosing to lie. She's choosing to lie. So all these tactics, they're just a way to get somebody off your back. I've done it before. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to hear about it. I'm just going to stay this way. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to discuss it. That's how I used to sound. I'm not going to lose weight. Just stop talking to me about it. That's what I used to say. Does it sound any different? A little bit, but is it any different? No. I can't. I'm too hungry. I used to say that too. I mean, it's unfortunate, you know. Obviously, you can only know if you yourself are hungry. If you are lying about it, then there's nothing else anybody can do, really. But I was lying about it at the time. So, yeah.
And some days maybe love it. What I'm choosing not to do is continue down this path that was actually more damaging for my health. That's just my...
Lies. You're still continuing down a damaging path. It's damaging for your health to stay this size. So you're full of it.
Experience. That doesn't mean that's the experience of every other person out there, because there's a lot of people in this world and everyone's experience is different. But
it's still a choice. Might be different factors going into a choice. Might happen faster or slower, but it's still a choice. It's a choice. It's certainly a choice to stay in the toxic ritualistic. And that's not different for everybody. That's in the DSM. It's pretty standard, actually, but there is this toxic ritualistic idea that they want to, it's like you want it to be a part of your personality. You feel like it makes you unique. So you say that your experience of it is totally different, but it's not. It's always textbook. All you have is mild, moderate, severe. That's all you have. But otherwise, all it is you're doing the behaviors more and more and more when you're more severe. That's it. But they're all similar. There's a reason why fat acceptance culture exists. It's because it's similar. It's textbook. It's a cycle. It's talked about. It's written about. It's all these things. We know it. It's not a mystery. It's not special. You're not different and you're not special for having it. Many, many people have this issue. It is a disorder. And we need to stop. Like, don't give people that credit. What is different is the triggers. The triggers are different. That's true. But the behaviors, they're not different. Otherwise, how could you sing that song? If I took the Sharpie where I take the scissors, na, 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 na. How could somebody write a song like that that resonated with so many people if it's so different for everybody? It's not. You're not special for having it. Your experience of it is not special. What's different is the trauma involved and what caused it and the triggers. So, you could be triggered by not having enough money for rent. That's going to be different from somebody else, which that's what makes it hard to treat, because although it's textbook, people's triggers are all different. So you have to just work through each trigger, basically, and get over it piece by piece. And you have to wake up to the reality of what you're doing. That's how you get out of it. But guess what? It will not happen if other people reinforce you. If the general population reinforces this, it will not get better. The person will not get better. And that's a cultural issue. It should not be reinforced. Do not give people outs. Do not give people credit. I've told you guys many times. No credit. And remember, they will do it to others too. So they will reinforce it in other people as well. And you can intuitively tell if you've had this issue. You can almost, I don't even say almost, you can intuitively tell if somebody else has the issue. And so you'll reinforce to that person specifically, almost on a subconscious level. I can get them. I can get them. It's bad. But that's what fat acceptance in large part is, to be honest.
I'm so fed up of people trying to come into the comments with their fatphobic narratives.
Trying to not reinforce me.
Telling me that fatness is a choice.
Because it's not reinforcing.
Because here's the thing. Comments like this, what I know is that you thought it was your fault. And you still think it was your fault. And that you still think that being thin or thinner is morally better. You still believe there is moral failing in being a fat person. You still think that there...
I think that that's more of a projection. That's more of like thoughts you play with in your head when you're in the toxic ritualistic. Because I don't know, like I don't think about the morality of fatness very often at this point. I haven't for years. So I think it's more of a projection. People typically just, when they say it's a choice and you perceive it as bad, it's because you know how bad you actually feel. This person knows how bad you actually feel because they've been there. I know how bad you actually feel because I've been there. It sucks.
There is more worth in being thin.
There's just more comfortability. There's a better quality of life.
That's a choice as well. Like, I choose not to see it that way. And...
yes, you choose not to live in reality, which is why you choose to be fat.
We all make choices, as you said. you can choose to unlearn your fat phobia. Oh.
So I hope you guys can understand that a little bit better. I tried. If I flopped, I flopped. Oh well. But hopefully some of you guys will understand me. But I'm going to go ahead and go. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will talk to you guys later. Have a good one. Bye.